Hello there, my very good friends. On today's wrestling news, a longtime AEW star could be done soon. WWE almost spoiled Dolph Ziggler's return. We've got an update on Saraya returning to wrestling, and also a potential reason for TNA beating Mike Santana so quickly. I'm Andy H. Murray. The H stands for Hey! And this is the news. Alright, we're going to kick this one off by talking about an AEW wrestler, a long-time AEW wrestler, someone who's been there for over 5 years at this point, coming up on 6 in January, whose contract with the promotion could be set to expire very, very soon indeed. That person is Anna Jay, and the report comes from Fightful. So, apparently, Anna's contract with AEW is up in the next few months. Now, there's no word on whether or not there have actually been negotiations when it comes to extending that contract. But apparently an AEW source has indicated that if that hasn't happened already, they expect the company to make the move to try and keep hold of Anna Jay. Apparently, Anna really enjoys teaming with Ty Mello, Ty J, tag team. They lost in the first round of the flipping tag tournament, but hey, they're still a tag team. Despite her enjoyment of that, she is also open to doing what's right for her career. That is the exact phrasing from this report here, including exploring potential free agency options. So yeah, they were knocked out of the tag tournament last week. So, pretty quickly after getting in there, which was quite surprising, in a few ways, because they are one of the more, they were the only proper women's tag team, really, when this whole thing was announced. I know you have things like the Triangle of Madness and various other alliances, but they've been a formalized tag team in AEW for ages at this point. So, quite surprising to see them not get past the first round. Maybe draw them against different opposition if you were going to do that. But hey, they chose not to put them through, and they lost at that stage. So, Anna Jay she's a really interesting story, because I think when AEW signed her, she only had like 8 or 9 matches, right? Like a crazy amount. If it wasn't 8 or 9, it was something like 15, not a lot of matches. She was a very inexperienced wrestler when AEW brought her in. She was initially used as an enhancement talent, and then they made the quite bold decision, I think, to build her up a little bit, doing the star of the show gimmick with the top hat and all that stuff. Anna Jay, here comes Anna Jay, and then she got crushed by Abaddon in a match that they'd spent some time building up, which was then used as a way to bring Anna Jay into the Dark Order, which is where she kind of found herself. And at this stage, she has something like 150 AEW matches on her record. She's been with the company for over 5 years. She's still young, though. I mean, she's got a whole ass career ahead of her, so it's no problem, for her to be exploring options at this stage. She's gonna have them, and it's probably a good window for her to take a chance with her career, because unless there's some kind of dramatic change, she probably knows what AEW looks for her right now, right? Like since the inception of the tag division might change things a little bit and might push Ty J to a greater level of prominence, but when it comes to singles work, she's primarily booked on like a middling level. You might get an occasional title challenge here and there, but she's not pushed to the same extent as Toni Storm, obviously, as a Jamie Hayter, as a Willow Nightingale, as a Chris Statlander. She's definitely positioned on a hierarchy tier beneath that. Now, that can change in time, obviously, but it's kind of been that way for about 5 years. My thoughts with Anna Jay and other young wrestlers is that I don't think that the developmental methods of the top 2 American promotions, I don't think they're very good, guys. What I mean by that is that Anna Jay strikes me as somebody who should really be out there, having dozens of matches every single year, loads and loads and loads, right? Out there on the road, kicking ass, getting the reps, because one of the most effective ways to get better as a wrestler is to be consistently wrestling people who are better than you and more experienced than you and have something to offer and something to learn and something to teach. That opportunity doesn't really exist at the moment. Certainly not in AEW, where they're on the road once or twice a week for TV. There's no real house shows or things like that, which is good in a number of ways, but bad when you're trying to develop young wrestlers like Anna Jay. She's been to Japan once for a tour with Stardom, but it hasn't been back. And I think that has probably stalled her development quite a lot. I don't think that she's quite I think she's good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think she's quite getting the reps that she needs to really reach her potential. And I think that's a shame. Now, the other side of that coin is if she went to WWE, for example, go down to developmental, go down to NXT. They run a few more house shows on NXT, but not quite to the level you'd like. And that developmental system is very, very different. So she might look at that as a chance to go, hey, I don't know about this system that I've been in for 5 years. Let me try the other one over here. Sometimes it's better the devil you know, but who knows how these things are going to turn out. That environment might suit her a lot better. I still don't think that it's producing the same level of blow-away talent that it did a few years ago or whatever. But maybe she might look at that as a fresh opportunity and a fresh challenge for her career because, 5 years is a good enough time to get a gauge of where you are in a company. Not that can't change, not that they might push her in the future. She's young, she's got loads of time on her hands. But maybe she'll look at that and go, yeah, I want to try this thing over here for a while instead. People should always be free to jump back and forth. I'm not playing sports teams with this stuff. These independent contractors have almost everything stacked against them in the business. So, hey, more power to people exploring their options. And we'll see where Anna Jay lands. We'll have updates on this as they emerge. I imagine it might not be for a little while, but who knows? Maybe we'll have more soon. I don't know. We'll find out. Anyway, let's talk now about how WWE almost spoiled Dolph Ziggler's return. So, Ziggler was in the Last Time Is Now tournament. Nobody, it was reported a couple hours before the show. But up until that point, I did not see anyone really picking him out as the potential mystery opponent for Solo Sikoa, which was quite a cool thing to see. He lost, of course, but he wrestled in the Garden and he worked his ass off. He bumped his ass off. He always bumps his ass off. I mean, the bump he took for that Samoan spike made it look like the scariest move in the business. He's great at that. Tremendous. Always been his biggest strength. Nick Nemeth, Dolph Ziggler, whatever his ring name has been over the years. Apparently WWE almost advertised this in advance, which I think would have been a huge mistake because the surprise was so fun on the night, right? But Dolph was speaking about this, speaking about like how he was speaking with Off the Ropes, right? And he was saying about how WWE wanted to advertise this in advance. Said that they considered announcing it ahead of time, that they were intentionally going to show a bracket and his name was going to be in it. But he thought that was a really bad idea and he was relieved when his return was not spoiled. I totally agree. We live in an era where a lot of surprises are announced in advance because it can pop a number, right? So like, if, for example, WWE John Cena returns next June, 6 months after retiring, there's a good chance that WWE would say John Cena's going to be on Raw because then people will know to tune into Raw to see John Cena. You don't have that same pre-advertised appeal if someone shows up out of nowhere because no one knows it's coming. However, it is much more exciting for us, I think, as wrestling fans, to know to be able to tune into the show and not know what's going to happen. So something like Dolph showing up was a great surprise. I thought it was a tremendous bit of business to not announce that in advance. And look, if he did announce that in advance, I mean, look, I respect Dolph Ziggler immensely, but I don't think that announcing that in advance would have had some dramatic increase on the show's viewership or anything like that. So I think this was the right choice. I think that we need more earnest surprises like this in wrestling. And yeah, there was a report covering the return, the appearance coming out online. But if you're not chronically online like me, you probably didn't see that. You probably didn't know until you tuned into the news the next day, which we're very thankful for, obviously. So yeah, really glad they didn't do this. Really glad it was an honest, earnest surprise because it came a lot stronger for me than it would have if they just announced it. And it was like, it's Dolph Ziggler. Instead, I know he's coming. Instead, it was like, holy crap, I didn't know Dolph Ziggler was going to be here. Great, it's good. Do more of that. Right, let's talk about Saraya. Seems like we talk about her future about once a month, but she's been back on talking to the Toronto Sun about her future in wrestling. And it sounds like she's edging a little bit closer to returning to wrestling. She's been out of the game since her AEW contract expired this year. She's free to go wherever the heck she wants. She has spoken quite openly about wanting to go back to WWE previously. As of yet, that has not happened. But I mean, there's a thing coming around called the Royal Rumble, which lends itself to surprises. So hey, who knows? But here's what she said to the Toronto Sun. I'm starting to get the bug for it again, it being wrestling. I went through a stage where I kind of fell out of love with it for a second. I need to take a break from it, and that was the whole goal. I have found a new love and passion for it again. I am going to get into training in January and see where that takes me. Again, the Royal Rumble's in January. I'm just saying, maybe a couple of weeks in wherever she's going to go might be enough for that. I don't know. Who knows? Somewhere she might head is the dungeon with Natty. Good. This is a nice idea. She said, if I ever were to come back, not saying I am, but if I were, I want to be at the top of my game and be wrestling better than I was back in NXT. That's my goal. Natty wants me to go down to the dungeon. I was like, absolutely. I miss it. I love it. And I think the percentage of me going back is a lot higher now. So she's just been chilling, man. Well, I'm not chilling. She's been working, but she's not been wrestling. She's been on her book tour, going around places, doing signings, meet and greets, things like that, taking it easy when it comes to the wrestling stuff. She doesn't sound like she's in a position where she needs to go back, right? Which is great. Great for her, obviously. If she's not in a state where I have to be wrestling because I need this, this, and this, good for her. She's not totally dependent on it by the sounds of things. That's awesome. If she wants to just write more books and travel around the place, awesome. Good for her. But it would be cool to see Paige in WWE again. I think, especially if you did it at the Rumble, that would get a big pop. And it'd be really cool to see. Hopefully they don't spoil it in advance. There was that report a couple of weeks ago about how they might announce Rumble surprises in advance because they can't hide people on a plane or... It's just a load of rubbish. The logic is all over the place. It's in Saudi Arabia, but I don't think that matters. I think you can still do surprises there, man. It's fine. But maybe she wouldn't even be ready for the Rumble. I don't know. I have no idea whatsoever. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Do you want to see Paige back in WWE? Do you think she can be as good as she was in NXT? That's her goal, to get back to that level. She had the AEW run, obviously. She was the women's champion there. Probably fair to say not the most acclaimed work of her career. I mean, I still remember the, Dr. Britt Baker, Your Name Rhymes with promo, which was a choice. But hey, look, it was great to see her back in wrestling, and I felt like her debut at Grand Slam was really well done, and felt really good for her. So, good for Saraya. Let's talk about Mike Santana now. Boy, oh boy, he's been in the headlines a little bit. So he recently lost the TNA World title after a couple of weeks at TNA's television tapings. It was a big cathartic victory for him. He had the celebration in the ring with his family and stuff like that. And he's always been a very heart-on-sleeve guy. So when he won the belt, it was very easy to feel good for him. I mean, if you didn't feel good for him, I would assume it's either because you don't know the story, which is fine. You can't keep up with everything. Or maybe your heart is made of stone, brother. Because what a great example of betting on yourself, rising to the top and carrying something that is for Mike Santana. But he lost it just the other week. Frankie Kazarian cashing in a right to challenge opportunity, if you will, and beating Mike Santana after he'd had his ass kicked by a bunch of NXT dudes as part of that invasion story. Scott D'Amore is theorizing that this might be part of a bigger plan. So he writes a column for Yahoo Uncrowned, and he spoke about the TNA title change, as in Kazarian winning it. He said that Frankie, when his AEW deal, wanted to come to TNA. Said he made an immediate difference in the locker room and to the product. He's a leader, a steady hand, and damn it, he's still impossibly good looking and athletic. It's really unfair. I totally agree on that one. I get why some fans weren't thrilled that he beat Mike Santana so soon, especially after Mike's long chase to get the belt. There's chatter about a new TV deal for TNA and plans for Santana to win the belt back on the first episode. That all makes sense. So perhaps TNA's logic was to build up to some kind of cathartic moment on the first show, like a draw on the first show, where Mike Santana wins the belt back from the dastardly heel Frankie Kazarian. So Scott D'Amore was TNA booker for ages and ages. He's no longer with the company, but it's safe to assume that he still has a few connections there, you know? He's running Maple Leaf Pro at the moment. So, you know, he's probably still got some kind of connection to TNA there because he was with the company for blooming decades, the guy. So probably a guy you can trust on matters like this. I would say that I think that, look, if you outline it on paper, right, and you remove the other context, guy wins title after a long change, dastardly heel cruelly snatches it away from him a few weeks later, beloved babyface guy finally beats the dastardly heel and wins it back. It's not inherently a bad story, it's solid pro wrestling fare, but the context of this just resonated like the company were booking to spite the fans a little bit. I think this tracked poorly online in particular. Lots of the idea that it was the post-match angle as well. This thing with Mike Santana is not answering his phone and we can't get him at the hotel and all of this stuff, which, you know, has some pretty grim connotations when you really unpack it. It left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, and I don't think these people were getting worked. I think they just didn't like the booking, right? There's a big difference between going boo, heel, boo, and the company, what are you doing, right? There's a big difference between those two things. One of them compels you to tune in and see what happens. The other one compels you to not do that. So hopefully they've made the right choice. I'm rooting for TNA, but they kind of stepped on a rake with this one, in my opinion. I'm rooting for them to do well. I think more companies doing well is good for the business as a whole. More companies on TV making money, doing cool things is what it's all about. So hopefully, if that's the plan, it resonates as intended. Hopefully, it's a big cathartic moment for Mike Santana. And hopefully, if he does win it back, he gets a nice long reign at the top, because that man blooming well deserves it. Anyway, I'm done. I'll see you later with Adam. We'll have another news video this afternoon. 2 of us. For now, you can check out the video that's on your screen right now. The algorithm thinks you're going to love it. Bye.